I'm here broadcasting to you from Denver, Colorado. And as you can see, yes, I am in a closet. I haven't been in this closet in a couple weeks doing a feed. I've been past couple days. I've been at Starbucks. I think if you watch my past ones, you'll see that I mentioned I was going to do possibly one at a bar somewhere or a pub, or maybe eventually get more downtown into Denver. I think one of the things I was thinking of doing is that they do have Cinco de Mayo on Saturday. So I could do something like that and just kind of get a collection of poetry, something like short stories and poetry. Because actually one of the reasons I'm reading off this laptop here is because, I don't want to spend like $30 printing out all these pages, right? It's much easier and far, far cheaper just reading off the laptop. But I was thinking of, printing out some pages or whatever. Like I said, that'll probably be easier rather than whipping out my laptop every time I have to read something, That way I can still walk and stream at the same fucking time, right? Okay, so anyway, though, welcome all of the haters, the trolls, the malcontents, the losers, the freaks, the weirdos, and everyone else. Because this is the perfect place for all of those that I just mentioned, okay? And this is chapter 7 now that I'm reading of my story. And just to recap it as I usually do, so Marie Lace, the last chapter, she has a conversation, kind of a lunch with Susan Dean. And through it we kind of discover a lot about Susan, a little bit. A little bit about Susan. Well, actually a lot about Susan and Marie as well, too. We discovered that Susan Dean was the daughter of George Dean, the general who took over the San Francisco Bay Area, kind of San Francisco itself. We discovered that Marie Lace has had a kind of a seedy past. It was obviously she had some issues with prostitution going on. So yeah, that's another thing that we kind of were discovering. Slowly the mystery of these characters are unraveling against this dystopia backdrop of a military occupation, if you will. Okay, so let's I'm probably just gonna, I'm keeping it kind of like half an hour to an hour, these streams. I'm not, so I think for now I'll just keep it like that. I don't know, tomorrow, like I said, I may go to like a bar or something like that, and then I will be reading from a bar. But now I'm going to be reading from closet, so let's go forward and dive into chapter 7 of How the Other Side Lives. Okay, now here we go. Let me get forward here. Okay, eyes shining like round circles of reflected glass, showcase shame mixed with terror, focusing straight ahead. Let me just back a little bit. Straight ahead. Stiletto heels click on the cobblestone-lined street with frantic regularity. No matter if projecting herself somewhere else or hurrying her pace prevents the anxiety from racking her body. She flicks her head, and a small stream of slime flies off from her cheek. That byproduct oozes down the left part of her chin. She resists the urge to either scrape the translucent substance coating her face with the side of a coat sleeve or lick her lips. Already the familiar texture creeps into her mouth. Though she had the substance plenty of times before, it was never in this type of scenario. The day is overcast, with dark clouds overhead ready to burst at any moment, so the film kept from drying too soon. Oh. Hello there. Yeah, hey, sup? How's it going? Okay, usually she loves stopping by the UN Plaza near City Hall. Remember, the story setting is in San Francisco. The fondest memories she recalled at the moment were of her and Joe strolling the sidewalk, people watching. A cheap but ever romantic date, even when half the time they tried to avoid the steady lines of street urchins loitering around near rows of concrete slabs encircling the long rectangular water fountains. The wide brick-layered sidewalk near Market Street opened up into a wide lawn spanning an entire city block, and in the middle, straddling the end with a gold-plated dome shielding, let me scroll over. Shining like a beacon from heaven was the mayor's residence. Now its inviting and cheerful atmosphere is no longer there. Her hands loosen from the death grip she had on a white billboard sign painted by a black marker with a crude style and even cruder message. Oh God, no. A young couple holding hands, gawks at her with incredulous expressions forming from their upper crust sensibilities. She quickens her pace, eyes still straight ahead. Every other step she glances at streetlights barely hiding miniature cameras filming everything. Words flutter all around her. She almost smells the shock and audacity from pedestrians smothering her like a gale of wind. She has what on her face? The indignant lady shrieks from behind. All in the past, like everything else. Just a little while longer, a little while. Faces and bodies with their gaped mouths and wide eyes blur together in a whirlwind of uniformity. Distractions, distractions. Friends? Gossip? Fashion? Dad, no, never him. But the last thought pushed through these barriers when her eyes glanced down and catch the silver necklace. His smiling face always brought out giggles of delight from her youth. She was young enough to ignore the stench of sweat and his alcohol-tainted breath. These were her earliest memories of a family, as her mom passed away when she was still an infant. As soft as lace, he would whisper in her ear. His arms, hands, and fingers were everywhere, raking her body, and she would again giggle back in innocence, wriggling to free herself from his roaming hands, tickling her so much. No one knew if his father's parents were still alive or dead, as she never had the opportunity to ask him or even her mom's side. It was still a mystery even as she got older. She remembered being dropped off at her grandparents and telling them stories of all the fun games she played with him. It was one day she vaguely recalled. Both were looming over her with the saddest of eyes. Her dad had disappeared, had gone away. The games he played with her were bad, they told her. She remembers screaming in rage. Darting in her new bedroom, she tore at the sheets with her hands in tears. She flung away the dolls and toys, enraged until she learned the truth. Then the rage turned inward. She blamed herself, her dead mother, school, teachers, and other kids. Eventually, the rage tempered enough to send a dull glow of shame and self-loathing. And what she hated most was the need for pleasure. To be pleased like she had been when her father was still around. To be tickled and to chill tears down around her face. To hear his words and tone, and to be felt and loved in the same way. "Hey!" someone yelled from behind, jolting her from the past. She ignores the angry shout and marches on. Clothes. I can think of clothes. That pretty dress with a floral design I passed a few blocks back looked fabulous. She gasped from a vice grip at her slender arm. Her body twirls around violently. She stares at a face, livid. "I've got my son over there watching everything, you fucking cunt." His upturned mouth spits out. His eyes bore into hers with a father's wrath. "I'm sorry," she pleads, backing away from his menacing posture. His lips morph into an oval shape, screaming in pain. He falls to the ground, his body and face spasm out of control, and movements construed as comical, if not for the broken whimpering pouring out. She matches his scream, and steps backward as a grotesque sign falls from her grasp to cover her gaping mouth. She looks up and faces a trio of black-clad security guards holding a bulky, elaborate work glove out in front like a partial military salute. A red object in the back of the glove glows faintly red before dimming. On cue, they use the other hand to push a button, and the long wiry material attached to the hapless father detaches from his spasming body and sucks back into its outlet. Oh yeah, I am new here. I've actually recently created this account some weeks back. I don't know. I tried to create like an OBS, but I guess because I have a laptop, I wasn't able to do it. I'm also created a Discord as well too. I think it's Retired Troll King. So yeah, this is my thank you for the first follower. I hope you enjoyed the story so far. If you missed anything, I have past broadcasts. Anyway, pledging forward. Thank you. On cues, they use the other hand to push a button, and the long wiring material attached to the hapless father detaches from his spasming body and sucks back into its outlet. Rushing forward, dark batons spring from their hands as they descend on him with precise brutality. Grunts turn to whining pain, and he rolls on the ground, trying best to shield his body. A form of sick laughter escapes from his mouth, turning her stomach. "Daddy!" a young voice screams out from somewhere. Out of the corner of her now crusted eye, a small shape flies into one of the guards. Grabbing onto a leg, the boy embraces with a desperate hold and sinks his small face into the dark fabric. With a grunt of annoyance, The guard casually lays back and grabs the youth by his hair. Crying out, the boy stumbles back with both hands circling in a bid to stay balanced before landing on his bottom. His face quivers and bunches up in a loud wall of tears and sobbing. "Don't you dare," she cries out. She then rushes forward. Wrapping both arms around the boy's shaking body, she smooths out his ruffled hair with a gentle hand. Eyes daring anyone to confront them, alternate their stare between the guards. "Stop this, Susan. It's over. Shoot's over now," she screams out, atypical for her character, at one of the tiny cameras. The obsidian eye reflects back her scorn as if in mocking disregard. A cackle of laughter answers her demand. That laughter. God, that laughter. Gazing across the street, you can spot Susan clapping her hands together with glee. A network of tourist shops and kiosks frame her outline. A smile arcing from one end of her mouth, she checks for any immediate traffic, then bounces across the street. "Well, Marie, you have achieved quite the reaction," she motions to her three goons backing off from the injured civilian. His movements oscillating from different appendages bring no more than a glance from her than a fly swatted from the air. "Why, just look at the crowd," Susan motions with an upraised palm. Marie follows the gesture and deduces a large crowd of onlookers had already gathered around this drama in circular formation. "He needs help," she hisses at Susan, the child sobbing and tapered down, his body buried deeply into her shoulder. She strokes his hair. "He didn't deserve that. His son didn't need to see that." "For grabbing you? Oh yes, he did. All of that and more. I wouldn't worry too much. An ambulance is on its way. He'll get the best of medical care." Susan's eyes wander to Marie's battered sign. Stooping down to pick up the flimsy cardboard, she flicks it away with a bored look. "I have come on my face." Chuckling at her self-congratulatory creativity, sirens in the distance growl at her. Both women stare at each other. "Come with me, love. Party's over," Susan motions. "Plus, we gotta wipe that shit off your face. I can't believe they actually thought it was cum. Nobody degrades and debases my pet except for me." "No, not until we know he's okay," Marie shoots back. Her adrenaline slowing, she's suddenly aware of the stiff mask of dried egg white plastering her profile. A maddening itch crosses her cheek. Susan arches an eyebrow at this move of insubordination. Moments pass. A flick of eyes may be discovering something, and Susan relents. She steps back, places both hands on her thin hips, and sighs with disapproval. "Have it your way. We'll wait." The violent drama abates once the ambulance steers away. Marie is relieved by the departure. The young boy broke from her and was at his father's side when they placed him on the portable gurney. On Marie's insistence, he was allowed to ride in the back. After, she follows Susan's lead and climbs into the end of a camouflaged Humvee parked nearby, altered in ways of luxury. Plush, leather-backed ebony seats almost brought out a yawn, surprising herself by how tired she felt. Susan's security team climbed in last, a mask of emotionless efficiency mimicking the professionalism of special forces or the equivalent. Each face might as well have been chiseled from granite. By reflex, Marie picks at the dried flakes. "Oh shit, I forgot about that." Susan reaches into a plastic bag near her feet, then tosses Marie a small towel along with a bottle of water. Quickly soaking the clean-smelling rag, she slaps it on her face. The organic substance now turns back into its original slimy form. She mops the rest off with crude wipes. Pitching forward with motion of the vehicle, Marie rolls up the soiled rag and tosses it in flippant anger at Susan. Susan's mouth opens in surprise. She gingerly picks it up, then drops it on the ground. "Problem, love?" Marie ignores the snap of irritation. "Yeah, take me home." Susan crosses her arm and stares at her irate employee. "Mad, love?" "You know why. You draw the line at blood play, but have no problem beating the snot out of someone and sending them to the hospital?" The stare down between the two commences. Again, Susan's thin legs shake vertically with a nervous tick swaying to and fro. The silence like an albatross to her. Susan is the first to break rank. Her hand grabs the front of her knee as she leans back with a frustrated sound. All right, love, softly capitulating. I'm sorry. Real fucking sorry. That was uncalled for. Putting you up to this was uncalled for. God knows this world is fucked up as it is without more bullshit. Shaking her head, Marie stares out the window. The bay slips from sight, bathing their ride in the shadows of the skyscrapers. Turning left, the Humvee accelerates and enters an incline leading to the on-ramp. South 101, where are we going? The pressure of a heavy weight surprising Marie. She looks down at Susan, pressing her head into her lap. Meow? Meow? Marie leans back, not daring to touch her. Meow? Will you forgive me? I'm a good friend. Meow? Meow? No, Susan. Marie stares out the window and watches 16th Street fly by, then Cesar Chavez as well. She's not going to let me go. Marie resigns herself to her fate. Yes, I forgive you. Marie adjusts her legs. Where were we going? Susan's head springs up and wraps her arms around her. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Retreating, Susan ignores Marie's question and stares out the passenger window. Besides the fierce noise of the engine switching gears, the rest of the trip is silence, punctuated by Susan's humming. Rising on a constant incline, they are waved through a myriad of checkpoints by a series of bored military units. When they reach the top of the long hill, they begin a slow descent when Candlestick Park springs into view. A steel and concrete monstrosity highlighted by colorful orange stripes and tall floodlights, almost reaching as high as the earth formation situated next to the old sporting complex. Marie's eyelids pop open. Not at the defunct stadium, but another wholly different structure ahead. A massive wall created out of the twisted limbs and entrails of motor vehicles stretches off in linear formation across the freeway. It touches the bay on one side, while gently sloping uphill until reaching the opposite end, where the Daly City housing units, not burned down months ago, still stand. A small gap just large enough to fit a truck through is closed off by a large steel barrier. Apparently this is the only point accessible to either enter or exit. Like a golden tooth, it seemed unnatural compared to the rest of the eclectic enamel. Vast pockets of 5-foot-tall dragon's teeth dot below its titanic size. We had a shitload of cars with not a lot of people to drive them. Since we needed to close the southern freeways, we used what we had. You do the math. Brakes squeal, slowing to a crawl before they stop. The two guards are the first to step out, followed by both young women. Susan raises both arms to the dusky sky, then lets loose a lazy yawn. A harsh wind blows in from the ocean, whipping Marie's jacket open, causing a shiver. Buttoning up, she wraps both arms around her shaking frame. She pivots around and stares at the scenery. This part of the city had always been chilly. A dense fog is already creeping in from the bay, its white tendril starting to engulf the Spanish-influenced homes. As dusk set in, few lights are spotted in any direction. Only the wind and a few muffled voices from the soldiers up ahead, clad in military camouflages, break the loneliness. You're in luck, love, Susan points to the vast formation, dwarfing even the citadel. Few have laid eyes upon this little piece of security from the north. Even fewer had seen the other side. What surprises await? Come, follow me. She skips away, leaving Marie to play catch-up. Susan zigzags past the rows of concrete blocks. She slows down long enough to flash the nearest personnel a smile and a badge. That young beauty was me, Susan nods to Marie, who is nearly out of breath. It's an impressive sight from a distance, but up close the vertical length of the junk heap seemed to go up and up. The soldier nods his approval and waves a gloved hand opposite of her direction. A loud vibration shakes the ground as the two large steel plates open in horizontal movements, leaving a gaping hole where the steel tooth once stood. Step through, love. Just be careful of the sudden stop ahead. We've had more than a few accidents. Falling through the narrow breach, the first visual sticking out from Marie seemed to be a large army of bodies milling about past a vast chasm. Opening up the asphalt highway like an open wound nature couldn't heal. The second are smoldering red pockets miles away, possibly going on forever to the naked eye. As the raging inferno surrounding the city had died out, So had the black flecks of ash. Marie steps carefully near a steel railing stretching the horizontal length of the chasm. It being brought to the point so no ladder stable or long enough could reach across the other side. Marie leans over the edge and stares into an endless darkness. Even the light sources, natural and artificial, fail to pierce the black sea of nothingness. How? Is all Marie can say. Susan leans next to her, nodding to the other side. She points to the mass of humanity and beyond, trying to keep them out and bottleneck any offensive from the south should the opposition get any ideas. Despite what you might think, the fires were started by civilians rioting and the feds getting the fuck out of Dodge. It wasn't our side. Thankfully, most burned themselves out. Even Oakland, or so I've heard. A good plan overall, but unfortunately, the engineering team never took into consideration the fault lines. How many know about this? I didn't hear anything from the news. I'm not surprised. The regime has been keeping this one under wraps. Great liberators they are. Her voice drips bitterness. I can just imagine the terror at the tremors when they first broke ground. The earth falling away to some massive fucking sinkhole. Swallowed alive. Susan pauses to let this all sink in. Turning her head, she nods at the nearby bay. Shocked the whole fucking thing hasn't collapsed yet from the water pressure alone. What a clusterfuck that would have been. Marie turns her attention to the civilians beyond the sinkhole. Random campfires dotting across the way illuminate malnutritious bodies staring back. A strong wind blows in from the south, causing Marie to gag and hide her nostrils with the back of her sleeve. As if reacting to her disgust, several of the skeleton figures open their mouths and motion wildly with their hands. Why can't I hear them? Why isn't anyone helping? You can't. I can't. No one can. Susan points out. The plan was to dig a trench long and deep enough so we can construct a small bridge to get across allowing some mobility, and maybe at the end to help whoever was still alive, or at least according to my father, if you believe him. I would have just left him to rot. I'd say he's a better man than I am, but then again, I'm no man. Susan spits over the edge. Unfortunately, not only are they shit out of luck, but so are we now. Ah, fucks, but what can you do? As for why you can't hear them, well... Susan's mouth curving into a grin, she points out a cylindrical structure on the opposite ends of the gap jutting into the sky. At least 20 feet tall, the pylons are shaped in the form of a radio antenna, dotted with dark holes at vertical intervals. Sound wave scramblers. They block out any noise incoming from or outcoming for a certain radius depending on where they're posted at. It's used all over the city, factoring in location. In this case, it's more for their benefit than anything else. Susan nods to a nearby sentinel. His face is covered with an elongated mask, curving downward into a large filter. Even so, in consideration of their mental state, we have to keep a constant rotation going. Why are you telling me this? Why did you bring me here? Marie surprises herself by lashing out. This is horrible. They're starving to death. Why aren't you doing anything? What's wrong with you? Susan cocks her face and levels a blank stare at her. I don't know why most of them don't leave. You would think what remains of the old regime would take care of them, but they don't. Honestly, like I said, it behooves my father to keep them here. They never assault this flank with so many refugees clogging everything. A logistical nightmare. A cold chuckle leaves from Susan's mouth. Honestly, I could be a real bitch and turn it off. I've done that before. Hearing them scream doesn't do shit for me. Honestly, third world trash boated over by the feds. Flush the toilet and let the turds go down. Fuck 'em. Susan grabs Marie by the arm and leads her away. The ride back to her place is struck by silence. Honestly, love, Susan whispers with pain in her tone, nothing could be done anyhow. That's the truth. I'm so sorry I showed you that, but I did it to let you know how blessed you are. You have a loving boyfriend. Baby boy. Food on the table every night, and you're a beauty. Thank the gods for that. Marie looks away, not wanting to risk a chance her husband might see her dropped off, and the questions bundled with it, she exits. She almost forgot her payment until Susan coughs, then hands her an envelope with a sly wink. Watching her escort drive away, Marie opens the contents, counting 3,000 more than she made last time. Reaching the front door, a sliver of logical thought strikes her brain. She never told Susan where she lived. And so, against the backdrop of Mozart's, that's what you hear on the backgrounds, we have kind of like a more, kind of like we're finding again more and more about Marie and Susan. Kind of we find out where Marie's, where her restrictions are, where her morality is. To be honest, I mean, she's always struck me as a very compassionate, but I mean, not very, very intelligent person. That's for sure. Well, Susan is kind of maybe the opposites. I think maybe she puts on the front that she's this cold and calculating cunt, but it really, she does have like a morality to her, and she realizes that the situation, what is going on with both sides is fucked, especially for the civilians, right? I mean, the new regime with George Jean is trying to survive by however it can. And obviously, if you have a lot of mouths to feed, you just got to get rid of the people, right? And you don't have enough food. And so I mean, maybe she's bitter about that. I think that's as well, too, though. I mean, she's obviously a very intelligent person. But she does have a lot of problems. But, I mean, you know, another kind of side as well, too, is like maybe, you know, her psychological mindset, maybe she is going a little bit crazy because of that, because of what's going on, because the casualties, the brutality, and everything else. But anyway, I'm going to end the stream on that note. Chapter 8 will be next. It's called A Sacrifice to the Gods. But yeah, anyway, though, I'm gonna kind of like leave all you freaks, you trolls, the losers, the haters, the malcontents, the freaks, the weirdos, all of my tribe over there. You know, I will see you tomorrow. I don't know where I'm going to be streaming. I may be streaming here. The reason actually I stream